Our friend Jay Ortiz asks, what are the pros and cons of point sparring versus full contact or light contact sparring? And he elaborates on that a little bit, but yeah, here's my take on it. Point sparring, what are the values of it? You understand that a certain technique will grant you a certain number of points, and you're trying to score a certain number of points. For example, when I was competing in Taekwondo back in the day, I think the rules may have changed, but back then it was like a 7-point lead meant automatic win. You could win by knockout, but most of the matches ended by points. And it was 1 point for an audible kick to the body, 2 points for a kick to the head, an extra point for a spinning technique, an extra point for a knockdown. And again, 7-point lead wins the match. So scoring points was paramount. If you could score more points, awesome, you had a high chance of winning. And similarly, in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, IBJJF style, it's very much a points game. Most of the matches don't end in submission. Most of them end by points. You score a certain number of points based on what technique you do. 2 points for a takedown, 2 points for a sweep, 3 points for a guard pass, 4 points for securing full mount for a certain number of time, or back mount for a certain number of time, 2 points for knee mount. An advantage point if you get close to a submission or a sweep or whatever. So obviously that's way different than a real fight. But what is the value of training like that? I would say there are certain values because it gives you a focal point. Now, IBJJF competition is one of the most annoying competition structures there is for me, coming from an MMA background, because leg locks are illegal and this technique's illegal and that technique. Everything cool and fun and awesome is illegal. So it forces you to develop a much more focused skill set. Okay, that means you can get much better at a certain number of techniques. Similarly, any martial art, any combat sport is like this. In Greco-Roman wrestling and judo, you can't grab the legs, for example, not anymore. So you have to become very good at upper body throws and submissions and so on. So yeah, there is value in contests of points. As far as how you can introduce this into your training, I do it all the time with certain drills. For example, there's a warm-up drill I do a lot. It's called touching toes. You have two people square up, and their goal is to touch the other person on the foot. The toes, the foot, or the ankle, just touch. No takedown, just touch that foot. You can grab, you can push, you can pull, you can clinch, whatever, but the goal is touch the foot, whether you're standing or on the ground. Why? Because this emulates the type of position you would be in to score a takedown, an ankle pick, or get in position for a single leg or a double leg takedown or something like that. Because if you can reliably touch that foot, you can reliably put yourself in position to get the takedown. So by itself, touching the foot, it does nothing, does no damage, which is a great thing for a drill because you don't want to damage each other during a drill. So point sparring like that is very important for drilling to develop very specific skill sets. Now, full contact sparring or light sparring, it's very important to spar and to experience what a fight is like so you know what you're getting yourself into, and to do lots and lots of light sparring so you have lots of experience. But one of the big problems that a lot of schools have is they'll teach a little bit of technique and then they'll spend the rest of the time just sparring or just rolling or whatever. I was talking to one of my wrestling coaches the other day. He's just now learning Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and he's taking to it like a fish to water. But he seemed really confused at the concept that a lot of Jiu-Jitsu schools, they'll spend about 20, 30 minutes teaching a technique or two, and then they'll spend the rest of the time just rolling, doing 5-minute goes. Roll for 5 minutes and then roll for 5 minutes more and just roll. And in that hour and a half, 2 hours of rolling that they do, the sparring and jiu-jitsu, the technique, opportunities to actually practice the technique that they had learned in class might come up maybe once, maybe twice, maybe not at all. And so how do they get good at that technique they just practiced without doing some type of drill based around that position or that movement? Well, you don't if all you do is spar. So there has to be a mix. There has to be a middle ground. So generally what I do in my class is I'll teach a technique or two, and then we will do structured drills around that technique to give my athletes an opportunity to get some repetitions against resistance at the various stages and levels of movement around that drill. Okay? For example, let's see here. What were we doing the other day in the jiu-jitsu class? We were training from the turtle position. Okay? So one player is turtled up, the other one is on top, and the guy on top is trying to get a reversal and pin the other guy on his shoulders. Basic wrestling drill. The guy on the bottom is trying to do the same thing, trying to get on top and pin the other guy on his shoulders. Okay, and I teach them a few techniques to facilitate that process, for the bottom guy to get on top and the top guy to get the reversal, get the other guy on his back. And so they again and again and again and again, they have the opportunity to practice this specific technique. And we'll do that, we'll drill it to death. We'll do that for like 30 minutes, maybe an hour. And then toward the end of the class, then we'll do some sparring, some full drilling, do whatever you want, whatever position you want. Start from the feet, work for takedowns, all the submissions. Or in a kickboxing class, we'll do something similar. Here's a technique, here's a setup, here's a combination, here's a foot movement pattern. Now let's drill this and drill this and drill this and drill it to death. Now let's drill it against resistance. Now here are some very specific rules you've got to follow in this drill. And when I say drill, I don't mean sequence. That's a big mistake a lot of trainers make, is they call sequences drills. A drill has resistance and it has an objective. For example, you are in the boxing ring, okay, and you want the drill is to get the other fighter in the turnbuckle, right? You start in the red corner, the other fighter starts in the blue corner. You want to circle around and force the other guy into your turnbuckle. Why? So that you can hear your coach, and so your opponent can't hear yours. That's a valuable skill set in a fight, right? To be able to shepherd your opponent around the ring. So that is something I practice a lot. And if you can reliably do that, yeah, you've got a significant advantage. But if you just go there and spar without any goal, without any objective, then who knows? You might, on the fly, think, okay, I'm going to practice this and this and this. Or you might just be swinging blindly and not really developing any new skill sets and just relying on what you're already good at. So drills allow us to develop new skill sets and expand our horizons and become better fighters. And point sparring, it's very much a drill. So you can derive drills that will help you become better at actual sparring from point sparring. Hope that helps. Thanks for watching. Get out there and train.